Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening depending on where you are in this amazing world. My name is Donovan Jolly, and welcome everybody once again for another amazing video of DIY investing. I thought that the most important video I could make today was talking even deeper on the correlations between the US dollar index and what happens with Bitcoin. You guys already know in my last video what I talked about was how every single time we've hit this certain resistance, Bitcoin has made a major run in its cycle. We're at that same resistance again, but I wanted to talk about a little bit of a different perspective, analyzing maybe some of the littler moves that have happened. Has there been periods where Bitcoin actually goes up with the dollar? These are going to be thoughts that we're going to cover today, so make sure you guys stay all the way to the end because I know that this one's going to really help you guys in your trading plans. If you're new and just finding this channel, always remember to do me a favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to this channel for more updates. Always remember to click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these amazing videos like the one provided for you here. And if you guys want to join the Discord server or download my free ebook, links are in the description to go ahead and do so. Thank you guys so much for the support, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, now we're just going to get into some basics with the Bitcoin analysis, and then we're going to talk about the dollar, and I want to share with you guys really the outcomes I'm specifically watching for, and just making this chart as easy to understand as possible, because I think that that's going to be the most value to you guys, especially people that don't have a ton of knowledge when it comes to investing. It's really can be challenging when we're going through choppy periods like this, and you guys, we're pretty much in a choppy period on every time frame. I mean, we can look at this chart from a number of different ways. I mean, from this perspective, we have a massive range that's being built here from, you know, pretty much 50 and 60% swings on each side. And then even on the shorter time frames, we're also struggling with this consolidation. And we've went through a few different ones. We had all of these wicks and all of this chop that we went through. Same thing kind of happened here before our breakout. And we're seeing that we're pretty much getting the exact same thing again. You know, there's not a whole lot of difference here. Overall, the big difference is this period of time was more of a downtrending angle. This one is more of an ascending, ascending angle. It's not much of a triangle. But we're seeing that these cycles can be very, very choppy. And that's kind of what they're meant to do. They're supposed to shake out all the weak hands before, you know, the smart money's accumulated and are ready to ultimately send the price higher into new all-time highs. And in my opinion, the big things that we need to be watching for inside of this Bitcoin chart go down to where is the momentum taking us right now. And I think that that's really where we can start off by sharing with you guys an update inside of the on balance volume. Now we're at a really important part where I'm not personally going to get worried unless this trend line starts to fail. If the OBV starts to fail, this becomes resistance, and we start doing something like this, then that's going to look really bad because that would basically signal that this ascending support is lost. There really isn't any sort of major momentum swinging in the bullish favor, and then we would probably drop to at least, you know, probably the bottom of what this wick was, which was about 33,000 per Bitcoin, just sub 33,000. We would go to at least there. But chances are, if we would lose that support, my guess is we'd probably end up retesting all the way back down to, you know, around 30,000. That would probably be the most likely scenario. In this case, that would be, you know, a big capitulation event. I would expect that to happen pretty fast. It would end up being similar to kind of these moves here. Any of these types of moves that we've been seeing where we just get a big sell-off. And I would imagine that that dip gets bought up pretty quickly. But that's only assuming the OBV actually breaks this trend line. As of right now, we've yet to do so. We still have a lot of consolidation left. On the shorter time frames, Bitcoin looks a little bit not as good. It's kind of just making lower lows and lower highs. We can see that indicated by this little red candle in here. But I mean, as we're approaching this trend line, I think it's a really good opportunity for us to look for positions. And I mean, at the end of the day, right now, the best thing to be doing is if you are taking positions, just keep yourself hedged. Understand that if this is, you know, somewhat of a bull trap, we end up faking, selling through support, then we could get a big capitulation event. But at the end of the day, all of it is going to be factored around the US dollar chart. What is this chart going to do? We are at the resistance. We are inside of this resistance box. I talked to you guys about in my last video how this one created the 2016 bull run. This was the resistance that we hit during the COVID crash when Bitcoin sold off to 3.8 thousand. And now this is us hitting it once again. Now this is a lot of strength. We're seeing the market moving. It doesn't necessarily look like it's going to slow down, but that's how every single move works. Anytime we were up here, it would have looked the same. It would have looked like it wasn't going to slow down, especially right here. I remember watching this during the COVID and thinking, oh man, this thing's about to break out and get sent so high. And, you know, it's hard to say exactly what's going to happen until we ultimately either reject or, you know, we either break out of this. If this chart breaks out, you know, I think it's important that we talk about some of the prior correlations that we've seen and talk really about, you know, what it's meant for the price of Bitcoin, because there has been certain periods where, you know, Bitcoin and the dollar have gone up, but as of late, it's happened less and the correlation has been a lot more of kind of a negative correlation. Not negative that it's bad or anything, but it just does the opposite of whatever the dollar is going to be doing. Now, if we come all the way back over here, let's look at the 2013 cycle top. This was when Bitcoin was at $1,150. And we can see that this was pretty much a period where the dollar really wasn't doing a whole lot. It was going through its consolidation before making this big move up to the upside. But I mean, if we come over here and look at the blow off top, this was the blow off top for Bitcoin. We went down here to about $74 all the way up to $1,200. And let's just look and see what the dollar did throughout that period. So right here was the bottom of our capitulation before our wave 5. And then we can see that the dollar made this big sell-off here. And during that sell-off was when Bitcoin first started to take off. And when Bitcoin took off, it's kind of funny, Bitcoin took off and the dollar kind of rose with it right throughout that period. And that was the blow off top. And so we do see somewhat of we see similarities with that correlation, but we do see some differences. And it's not always going to mean that the dollar has to make a big upswing. I mean, Bitcoin made its blow off top in 2013, and the dollar really was barely moving. Of course, this was also a consolidation period for the dollar, but I mean, it's not always having to be going up in a big, drastic way to make Bitcoin move in a big way in price. And so that's something to understand here. Now, we are seeing a lot more volatility over the last 5 years. The market cycle has seen a lot more volatility, and we've been going through a consolidation period very similar to what we're actually seeing inside of Bitcoin today. Now, if we come over here and look at the beginning of the 2016 bull run, and even over here, we can see that at the very bottom of this low was right here. This is where Bitcoin started selling off from its blow off top. You know, the dollar really wasn't doing anything throughout the period of Bitcoin originally selling off. But right here, when the dollar bottoms and starts to make its first major impulse, we can see that Bitcoin made its fast sell-off. This was 5 impulse waves down for its capitulation, right? And then that's what took us to the bottom of that bear market. We can see that as Bitcoin went for its capitulation, the dollar went on its massive move. And so, as a rule of thumb, like I've always stated, we're going to see the dollar and Bitcoin be negatively correlated. We're going to see Bitcoin do whatever the opposite of the dollar is, but it's not always going to be 100%. Now, we can see throughout this period of time, the dollar kind of chops around and makes this double top. And when it actually rejects at its resistance is when Bitcoin broke out and started uptrending again. This was the beginning of that new bull trend. The dollar makes its first sell-off. It retests support again. Bitcoin breaks out, makes another higher high. And then what you end up seeing here was at the very bottom of this move, at about May, the dollar runs up, and we actually see Bitcoin doing the same thing. So I was wrong with my with what I was showing right there. When the dollar bottoms May of 2016, we run back up, make a higher high, and this is really our first resistance. This is the major resistance that I've been talking about. But what's interesting here is when the dollar bottomed May 2nd, May 2nd was right here for Bitcoin. The dollar and Bitcoin both broke out. You know, Bitcoin kind of sold off here. When the dollar made its tiny correction, Bitcoin bottomed and started going up. As the dollar makes its higher highs and higher lows, we're actually seeing Bitcoin, you know, going up with it. But as the dollar pulls back, Bitcoin's bottoms. And then as the dollar bottoms, Bitcoin pulls back. And so right here is where we actually get the beginning of that 2016 bull run. The dollar makes this big run up. It looks like it's going to be breaking out. It made a new all-time high. We hit this resistance. And then it was during this big sell-off here that we created the 2017 bull run. And the cycle top for Bitcoin this is kind of an interesting note. The cycle top for Bitcoin was right here, but the dollar still made a lower low, right? The dollar made this move, and Bitcoin actually sold off with it. And so there are going to be periods of time inside this cycle where the dollar and Bitcoin are going to sync up, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if we could potentially see something like that playing out right here, which is why I wanted to talk about this video today. You know, we can see a few different things play out. The dollar doesn't have to hit this resistance and crash for Bitcoin to go on a run. In fact, we've seen Bitcoin run with the dollar in periods. There are always been short periods of time, but it doesn't take a very big move in the dollar to see Bitcoin go on a massive tear in a bull run or even in a bear market. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. Notice how at the very bottom of this sell-off, this was kind of like bullish divergence inside of the market for the dollar, where it makes a lower low in price. But then what we see here was Bitcoin also made a lower low. This was our first sell-off inside the bear market at our cycle top in 2018. A, B, C. And Bitcoin actually bottomed and swung up during this period where the dollar was bottoming. But notice here, guys, as Bitcoin went into its descending triangle inside of that bear market, the dollar was uptrending and kind of doing this, right? It was ascending as Bitcoin was descending. And then we get this big crash here. And during this crash, you know, the dollar really didn't do a whole lot. In fact, the dollar sold off with Bitcoin when Bitcoin sold off in that crash. And so this is what I'm talking about. The dollar doesn't always have to be making big moves. I mean, it pretty much barely moved throughout that period. But I mean, Bitcoin had a 50% sell-off in that period. And they both actually sold off together. And so this is something that happens consistently. Now, if we come over here, Bitcoin bottomed. It ran up to 14K. And what we actually see here is as the dollar kind of pulls back slightly in this uptrend, that was the topping point of Bitcoin. But none of this really matters. I mean, all of this is pretty much just the same sort of consolidation. None of that really matters for the most part. The big thing to take away from this consolidation is the fact that Bitcoin can oftentimes start doing a lot of big impulses without the dollar hardly doing anything at all. And oftentimes Bitcoin's just kind of going to do its own thing without the dollar needing to be making a big move, right? I mean, Bitcoin was making big moves. It had a 50% sell-off, and it had like a 150% pump, maybe more than that from the lows, all happening throughout one of the most least volatile times in its consolidation, right? Even over here, we saw similar things. Bitcoin was going on some big moves in relatively small amounts of consolidation. Now, the big thing to understand, to take away that applies to what we're seeing today, we saw this COVID crash. This marked the bottom, right? So as the dollar pumps into this resistance, this was Bitcoin completing our capitulation and about to make us into that new run. Now, as the dollar made 5 new impulses down, we saw something very similar to what we saw with this 2017 bull run top, right? Bitcoin runs. Bitcoin tops pretty much at the same point that the dollar is finishing its consolidation. We see Bitcoin tops right here. The dollar makes a lower high. The dollar actually falls back down to retest support. And what's interesting here is Bitcoin sold off with that, and they both kind of sold off. But as the dollar made a higher high, Bitcoin made a lower high, and then the dollar started breaking out, and Bitcoin went through its consolidation, right? But now we're at this important point where the dollar is actually breaking out, or we're at the resistance. We don't know what's going to happen yet. You know, this could easily reject. This could easily pump up a little higher and then reject and turn into a wick. You know, there's going to be a lot of volatility in this sort of a move. And that's why I think it's important that we talk about different correlations that we've seen and how we can maybe apply it to what we're seeing today. Now, as we're at this resistance, we're at the very top of the resistance. We're getting close to basically leaving the resistance and breaking out. And so I'm kind of wondering what is actually going to be taking place here. Now, there's a few different scenarios that I see. Option number one, the dollar rejects at this resistance, and then Bitcoin blows off into its next major move into the cycle, right? Now, that's option one. Option two is where the dollar breaks out and Bitcoin sells off again, right? That's definitely an option that we're all considering here. Now, what about option three, where what if, the dollar breaks out here, but what if Bitcoin also bottoms and starts breaking out too? The dollar can make this big run, and Bitcoin might not move a whole lot, right? Bitcoin might just kind of consolidate here, maybe make a slight impulse, we might not see a whole lot of price action in here. And that's, at the end of the day, we don't really know until we get a definitive move one way or another. With us being right at this point, you know, we're just waiting for the final decision to be made, where either we see a big breakout, which becomes obvious that this is going to be breaking out, you know, consistently breaking out, not just some short time little thing, and then it instantly starts pulling back. Because this is something to understand, guys. During these periods, we can easily see moves that extend even past resistances, and then they instantly fall back down. And a prime example of this was just not very long in the consolidation for the dollar. And we can come back over here. Let's remove some of these drawing tools, and let's compare. It was this move right here. I mean, we went through this period of consolidation that looks similar to what we're seeing today, right? Where we make 2 attempts at the resistance, both are rejected. We make 2 attempts at support, we bounce both times. We make a big run past those highs, but when everybody thinks it's going to be breaking out because it's making a new high, that was also the rejection point, right? And then we sold off. And so that is pretty much a larger fractal of what we're pretty much going through right now. I mean, if we draw a support line here, drag it all the way over. Let's remove our resistance real quick. Let's remove some of this stuff. Let's make this black. I mean, realistically, this is just pretty much the same sort of consolidation. And so in the same way that we got this move past the previous highs here and then rejected and it was a fake out, I would not be surprised, and you guys shouldn't be surprised if this is also something similar, where we run up, it could peak above these for a little bit, but then it's going to probably fall back down like that. And if that was the case, our target is going to be over... let's drop it to a bigger time frame. Let's go to 2 weeks. Our target would be over here. Something along the lines of this, right? That is where I would expect to see our top in this move. Now, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I'm just ultimately drawing you guys the different blueprints, the scenarios that I see happening inside the market, so that you guys ultimately aren't so afraid of what's taking place. When you see your cryptos going down, when you see Bitcoin's been going down consecutively for so many days in a row, it gets kind of stressful, especially if you were somebody that made a lot of profit towards, you know, Bitcoin being at the top over here or even over here, and then only to see all of that start to evaporate. It gets tough. That's when you want to panic sell. And so I'm just here to tell you guys that there's been scenarios in which we've seen this play out, and I'm going to do my part in kind of holding through, because I'm still confident that this is ultimately going to resolve into Bitcoin breaking out and going into our final move in the cycle. That's just the way it looks to me. It's going to be interesting to see exactly what takes place with the dollar, but I'm going to keep you guys updated. As of right now, you know, it can go either way. This is the type of move I would expect to see if we do break out of these highs. Keep in mind, it would be pretty much just the same as this consolidation that we saw right there. I'm not really too worried about it. Wanted to give you guys that quick update so that you're not worried about it either. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you found value in this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these amazing videos. If you guys want to join the Discord server, download the free ebook. Links are in the description for that. If you guys want to sign up for my VIP course, Signals, follow the trades that I take, all of that fun stuff, links are also going to be in the description to go ahead and join on my website. Thank you guys so much for the support. I look forward to seeing you guys inside the group. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.